Hey everybody, so glad that you're here. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to showcase the entire growing season of the brand new annuals that I had planted in my front flower bed, which has been quite the process, but it's been super successful. So I just want to get that video out to share with you what it looked like when I first planted them and then what they look like at the end of the growing season. So to get started, I had cleared out all of the weeds and all of the tulips that had been in here before, because as you remember, tulips in Southern California are treated as annuals. They don't come back every year. So I had taken those out and I cleaned them up. And then I brought out the annuals to get ready to plant. But remember when I did that video of the unboxing way back in April, this is actually the day that the annuals came. I shot a video so you could see what they look like when they came in the mail. And they were super healthy, as you can see here. This is the Superbena Imperial Blue. And I thought this year it would be really cool to pair that with the Supertunia Vista Jazzberry, which you can see right there, which is kind of like a cool fluorescent magenta color with purple undertones. And then with the deep purple of the Imperial Blue, I thought that would really go well together. So I unboxed them and then I grew them in their cans on that table in the backyard and fertilized them and took care of them so they would get more of a substantial size. This way, when I put them out in the hot sun, they would do really well because they'd be a bigger plant. So I did that. I brought them out, I set them out, I prepared the soil, and then it was time to plant on May 15th. So in order to make sure that everything is nice and uniform, I always place the plants first, just to make sure that I have them spaced correctly and they fill the entire length. This way I don't come up short. And then I can always readjust it if needed. So when I'm placing them, I'm trying to keep them where the emitters are located along the drip irrigation line there, which is kind of cool because it had already been there from the year before when I had the Supertunia Vista bubblegum in there with the Supertunia Vista Paradise. Some of these emitters were clogged, so I took this time to get those replaced, and I'll probably eventually have to replace the entire line next year, but for right now they're good to go. And I was excited because, as you can tell there with a close-up, those two colors and two bloom types are really nice together, and they contrast each other and they complement each other really well. So when it was time to plant, I just pulled the can out and set it on the edge of the planter and used my auger to drill, my power auger, to drill the hole that I was going to plant them in. And I always made sure to make that hole a little bit bigger so that it would loosen some of the soil so that the root ball would be able to really take hold instead of being placed directly into hard ground. After I dug those holes, well, I wasn't digging those holes, I guess auged the holes. I came in and I filled them with some of the Espoma flower tone fertilizer, organic fertilizer, which is fantastic. Making sure that they had all the nutrients that they needed because, I had tulips in here before. They don't take up a lot of nutrients, but the other annuals that I had the year prior, they took up probably everything that was in there before. So I want to make sure to really rejuvenate that soil and then go in before I plant them in the ground and really loosen up that soil in the hole and mix in the fertilizer so it's not sitting directly on the root ball, which it probably wouldn't be a problem because it's slow release anyways. I just want to make sure it's evenly distributed in the ground so that they really can, put out their roots and really get established. So I'm taking my time, I'm planting them by those emitters, like I said, so they make sure that every single root ball gets watered directly, which has been a game changer, honestly, because I used to have to, a long time ago, just kind of flood the whole planter, and that's really wasteful, and plus it encourages weed growth, which is a nightmare. So once I put the emitters in for the roses and then obviously the annuals in front of them, I noticed I didn't have as much weeds. I still grow weeds, but it's not as bad as it used to be. So anyways, this is the end of that planting process. I have some of the drip irrigation lines running right there. You can see it kind of spraying up a little bit. I just want to make sure everything is still working after maneuvering around everything, and it was great, and it looked great right off the bat. And about a month later, on June 26th here, you can tell that they're really starting to grow. The Supertunia Jazzberry is really starting to mound nicely. The two colors look great under those white roses there. One thing that's interesting about the Superbena Imperial Blue is the blooms that are in the shade have an actual blue hue to them, which is interesting. And when they're in the sun, they look more purple, which is cool. I was wondering why they call it Imperial blue, but they do have that blue hue when they're in the shade, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, here's that mounding habit of the Supertunia Jazzberry. Just absolutely beautiful, full of blooms. I treated them with BT to keep the budworms away, and I've been fertilizing them once every 2 weeks. And I think that fertilizing really helped, because a month later, especially when the roses were in their second bloom cycle, they're just kind of creeping over the edge of the planter there, which is really nice because I don't like a super formal look. I like it to look kind of natural and just kind of full. And so I just kind of let them grow over the side, and it's really stunning from the front of the house when you're like walking down the sidewalk to see them kind of growing over. And then a month later, that mounding habit is just continuing. And both of these plants are keeping up with each other's vigor. Like one is not outdoing the other, and they're intermixing beautifully, which is really what I wanted to see. And I would definitely do this again next year, because look at this. This is even a month later. This is a couple days ago here in September. And they are just completely full of blooms. And you can see that purple mixed in with that magenta right underneath those white flowers. It's just absolutely spectacular. I definitely made the right choice in picking these two flowers. And if anybody even thinks about planting these, they're going to be very pleasantly surprised with how beautiful they are. So, you just try new things every year. My idea is to plant different colors underneath those roses every year, and this was definitely a great choice. And look at how they've grown. They're huge. And when you look back to where they were when I first planted them, like right here in this next video or next clip that I'm going to show, you can really see, boy, they've grown immensely. They were incredibly vigorous, and they're extremely hardy, and they grow well together. So anyways, that's another Supertunia Superbena story. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time, everybody.